Hello and welcome. We have here for you episode 1 of Wallin Explains the Universe. Our title today, Brain, Mind, Reality. Hopefully at the end we'll talk a little bit about life in general too, meaning the life down at the essence of it. So some of this talk relates information that I delivered in a presentation in Stockholm, Sweden, May 2011. Now the first thing, if we want to explain the universe, or we were going to talk about the nature of reality, or the essence of things, we kind of have to split it, whether we're talking about the stuff that's in our head or if there's stuff really out there that we then interpret in our head. And this falls really in philosophy between subjective or objective, because the stuff that we just make decisions on is more subjective stuff. But is there really something out there, an objective reality? And that's really what we want to get into today. Now, I'm going to state this as a question, and I'm going to use some physical ideas from quantum mechanics. And as we go along, I will try to get more into different pieces of the quantum mechanics. Not too much detail, but enough to try to build a picture. And that's what, as we go along, try to build the picture. Try to build the picture and think. So here it is. Is there an objective reality? Well, when contemplating the possibility of an objective reality, I submit it may be best if the physical universe is imagined as a seething dance of energy events. And these events, they have a dynamics to them, and we should think of them in terms of Planck lengths, Planck time, and Wheeler's quantum foam. And this quantum description is going to include virtual particles, antimatter, and dig this. This stuff passes in and out of physical existence and may even deploy effects forward and backward in time. So, as promised, a little bit on this Planck stuff. The Planck scale is the proposed bottom level of physical events. It's like the smallest scale that some of really the numbers and the constants that are out there in our physical science. And Planck length is presumably the shortest length in our science, 1.16 times 10 to the minus 35 meters. Unbelievably small. Planck time, the basic unit, 5.4 times 10 to the minus 44 seconds. Now, quantum foam. This came from John Wheeler, and here's a quote. I found myself forced to invent the idea of quantum foam, made up not merely of particles popping into and out of existence without limit, but of space-time itself churned into a lather of distorted geometry. Now, this is going on everywhere. It's going on inside the membranes, inside your body. It's going on inside the wood table. It's going on inside the rubber and the tire on the car. Everything, in the molecules in the air, all this stuff. There's a basic fabric type here. Now, my motivation in talking about this is from the viewpoint of a computational philosopher. And so I'm interested in how universe in total computes. And so I'm going to be talking about this in terms of the universe as a computer. Now, whether that's the case or not, of course, is still up for debate, but that's kind of the gist. So if we're trying to get a picture, you can even think of your computer graphics. You see the graphics and stuff, but that quantum foam, we put those graphics down at the lowest level, embedded inside everything that's down there. Now, so a little bit more on quantum mechanics. Quantum mechanics, you might have heard this. There's a lot of popular science on it. That's where probabilities rule. There's a probability of this will happen or that will happen. And one of the things quantum mechanics, when it was first coming around in the early part of the 1900s, they had a big conference in Copenhagen, Denmark. And out of that came the Copenhagen interpretation. And it claimed that, well, all we're really going to get from quantum mechanics is descriptions of what is occurring in the universe. And the claim was made that we're never going to use quantum mechanics to describe what is happening, to give us more philosophical understanding of what's happening in the universe. Now, not everyone agrees with the Copenhagen interpretation. And with what follows, you'll see that I don't. I think there is things we can get from quantum mechanics to help us think about how the universe does work. So part of quantum mechanics involves a quantum vacuum. And the quantum vacuum is a term used to describe certain aspects in modern physical theory. Because what happens is, for any physical event, we need negative energy electrons and other so in this quantum vacuum, there's antiparticles, virtual photons. These things surround physical electrons and literally jump in and out of existence. Now, in this quantum vacuum, in the typical viewpoint of physicists, they don't consider, well, where does that stuff go when it leaves the physical universe? Because it's popping into existence and then going out of existence. Well, for me, this creates an enormous reality flux that's going on. There's stuff fluxing into the physical universe and then fluxing out of the physical universe. All part of the quantum vacuum mechanisms. So I've adopted the term negative universe. That's a Buckminster-Fuller term. I use the term negative universe to describe that aspect of the quantum vacuum where the antiparticles flux to and fro when they are not in the physical universe. Now, we need to say negative universe is an aspect because you don't really want to call it a place. Negative universe, if I call it a place, it implies some kind of spatial essence to it. But it doesn't have any spatial or temporal essence as far as we know. All we know about negative universe is that it's outside, or it's not physical universe, but it's connected everywhere. Because this quantum vacuum actions are needed everywhere. At all little pieces of what we call space, there's this thing going on. So this reality flux, the connection between physical universe and negative universe, part of the quantum vacuum mechanism, I'll submit to you that that's really acting like current and voltage do in electrical equipment. Now, when you have electronics or computer, iPod, any of that, all these electronics need power sources everywhere throughout the equipment. In order for any kind of transistor circuit, all this stuff needs a power source connection everywhere. And so this is also true of universe. The universe has this power source. It's the reality flux, which is part of the quantum vacuum mechanism. Now, we can take this further here, and we can suppose not just the quantum foam, but even some geometry. And you can lay some geometry down at this lowest level and look at different things bubbling. So there's this very, very big dance of energy events. And that is what I'm thinking about here in this presentation when we talk about the objective reality. There's that quantum foam, and then these higher level aspects that we see. Now, I want to move with this. Once we have this idea now, I want to go talk about how mind maybe fits in to the universe, because there's some very funny things about that. There's this idea called a dualism of mind and matter. Now, Yogwan Kim speculates that the world is split in two, with minds on one side and stuff on the other. Now, that idea is very old. It goes back to René Descartes. And the classic Cartesian cut between mind and matter is called dualism. And it's a classic dualism. Now, not all scientists like this idea, but here's what dualism is. You have matter in our physical universe, and there's things like locality, causality, one thing causes another, and all this is embedded in our space-time that we have in the physical universe, where we feel the time go by and stuff. But then mind is put over somewhere else, and mind has aspects of non-locality, non-causal, and really is not in space-time. So within this quantum vacuum idea, we see that mind fits very well into the negative universe, while matter, as we know, is here in this physical universe. Okay. Now, why this split? This split does very good for different spiritual and religious ideas, fit very well in the model. But from a computer point of view or a physicist point of view, chemist, biologist, they don't want things outside of the physical world. But for mind, if there are aspects of mind that are non-computable, and we'll talk about that in a little bit, then how can it be just made of physical things or just energy? And many of us do believe that there's aspects of mind that are non-computable, so we need something else. And this is why this classic dualism works here. Now, Roger Penrose, Sir Roger Penrose, famous physicist, used to work with Stephen Hawking a lot. A lot of people know him from that. In his model of mind and matter, he makes use of a Platonic world outside of physical universe for the abode of things needed for mental processes. Now, for our purposes here, Penrose's Platonic world fits well into our non-spatial temporal abode of negative universe. Okay, Penrose is very elaborate work here, and with Hammeroff out of Stuart Hammeroff out of the University of Arizona, they have this what they call ORC OR model, and so it brings quantum mechanics into a relationship with actual brain matter. Okay, so here's some details, and then we'll talk a little bit more about it. So the ORC OR model places a quantum computational connection between physical universe and Penrose's Platonic world in the cell cytoskeleton microtubules of neurons. Now, it's well known that our neurons operate about 40 hertz, so this is cycling every 25 milliseconds. So their idea is that there's a quantum collapse or a quantum kind of connection here between their Platonic world and the physical world every 25 milliseconds. And each of these conscious events involves about 2 times 10 to the 10 microtubulins in here. So now, since this ORC-OR mechanism, it's a connection between the physical universe where brain is and the Platonic world. Really, if I'm using negative universe for that, I would submit to you that this mechanism is maybe part of this reality flux. So while antiparticles and antimatter are flowing in and out there at the quantum foam level, that's also how mind is interacting with your physical brain. Okay, so I want to work on this a little bit longer and talk about the brain builder's dream. Now, this is not my dream, but there's actually a lot of work being done on building software brains or brains of other materials, and it's quite fascinating in one sense, but maybe futile in another. But of course, that has to be seen. So here's some other words on this. Functionalism and computationalism take the assumption that mind is solely a result of brain functioning. Okay, so people that have this functionalist idea, they don't believe in dualism. And so for them, well, the brain's just a bunch of physical activity. So why not put that physical energy activity in some other medium? Maybe electronic stuff inside your computer or something, or some other type of mechanism. Build a molecular computer that can hold a mind if you organize the interactions just like the brain's interactions are set up. Now, there's another thing that the brain builders talk about, and they talk about substrate independence. Substrate independence takes the assumption that brains can be built of stuff other than biological stuff our brains are built with. Now, a dualist, while I disagree with functionalism, I think functionalism is probably wrong, substrate independence, though, could be true. Okay, so now a dualist, I need to take that approach because I believe there's aspects of mind that are non-computable. So there's aspects of our mental life that are not simply a result of brain activity. And so what this means is the model here, it puts an individual mind actually in negative universe. And maybe there's some computing out there that's going on. Something's going on in negative universe. And then that mind connects to an individual brain here in physical universe via mechanisms of reality flux. Now, a good analogy here is like an antenna. Think of the brain as an antenna, and the signal that it's receiving is a mind out of negative universe. Okay. So, with that model, there's a lot of different things that can happen. There's a lot of potential theoretical problems that can come up with brain emulation. Okay, But one of the big problems here, if with this dualist mind-brain model, okay, and if you can actually build brains in other material, which substrate independence suggests, that means if we build a brain, when you turn it on, it's actually going to connect with a real mind out of negative universe. Okay. So yeah, they can maybe build one, turn it on, but it's not going to be a new mind. It's going to be a mind that's already out there that comes in. So maybe more on that a little bit. I mean, some of the problems, a lot of problems could happen. You know, for example, what if they built a mass market in brain emulators? I'd claim that could cause a potential depletion of our universe soul and mind inventories out there. Now, off of mind matter, before we kind of wrap up this episode, I want to talk a little bit about some other special thing that happens in this universe that we see all around us, and that's called life. Okay, and now life, it's funny. We sentient beings, we have this in conjunction with mind, and I can maybe claim with this negative universe model, connected via reality flux to the physical universe, that this is how life is supported also. This is how life gets into this physical universe. It's supported out of the negative universe. And so when you're in the physical universe, you're a life entity, and you interact with other life entities here, there's probably other stuff interacting there in the negative universe. Okay, and all of us have had these weird feelings like that. There's aspects you can feel and sense and things. A lot of good science out there in the science of consciousness, where it does blur this idea with subjective, objective nature. There's a lot more to say on this. One of the things, these are classic Lebet experiments, French scientist. It happens that physical events that happen with our body, I decide to raise my arm or walking across the floor, things like that, the signals that happen in your body through the muscular system and they go up, these signals actually start before the physical event occurs. So there's a subjective presentation being made to your brain as you interact with this objective reality out there that has this quantum foundation. Very, very odd. And then how about the other thing that's a good hint for people, part of the hint parade, and there's a lot of study on this if you believe it or not, the idea that you can tell when someone's looking at you, right? You're walking down the street. Now what kind of physical evidence or physical interaction do you have if someone's behind you looking at you, but we all get that feeling and we turn around and see, yes, someone's looking at me. Where is that happening? That interaction most likely is occurring out there in negative universe. And with this idea, with this dualism idea on how mind, brain interacts with the reality, there's a lot of stuff we can talk about. But we're going to save that for another episode. And I thank you today for listening to the first episode of Wallin Explains the Universe. Be well and be blessed.